Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try to unpack this whole idea of free software.
Okay.
And trust me, it's a lot more interesting than it might sound at first.
Right.
We're diving into an excerpt from the GNU Project's page
Okay.
called What is Free Software? And get this, it's not even about the price.
Oh,
It's
worse.
about freedom. Things like free speech, not free beer.
That's a great way to put it. The GNU project is all about making sure that users have control over the software that they use.
Right.
And they actually outline 4 essential freedoms that define what makes software truly free.
Okay, so let's break down these freedoms. I'm already intrigued.
Okay.
What is the first one?
Well, the first freedom, and they actually call it Freedom 0, is the freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose.
So it's about the user's purpose, not the developer's.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big shift from how most software works.
Exactly. It challenges that traditional model where the developer dictates how you can use their software.
Yeah,
Free software puts you in the driver's seat.
I like that.
Yeah.
What about Freedom 1?
Freedom 1 is the freedom to study how the program works and change it to fit your needs.
Okay.
And for that, you need access to the source code.
Source code, remind me what that is again.
Think of it as like the blueprint of the software. It's the underlying code that makes the program function.
Okay, so having access to that source code is kind of like being able to tinker under the hood of your car.
Yes.
You can really understand how it works and even make modifications if you want to.
That's a great analogy. And it's crucial for this idea of user freedom.
Yeah.
Without access to the source code, you're stuck with whatever the developer gives you, no matter how much you might want to tweak it.
So Freedom 8.0 is about running the program however you want. And Freedom 1 is about understanding and modifying it.
Right.
What are the other two freedoms?
Freedom 2 is the freedom to redistribute copies of the software to help others, like sharing something useful with a friend.
Right. And it seems like this is where that community aspect of free software comes in.
Absolutely. It's all about collaboration. Users are encouraged to share the software and work together to make it better.
Makes sense. What's the final freedom?
Freedom 3 takes that collaboration even further. It's the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions to others. So not only can you change the software to suit your needs, but you can also share those improvements with the community.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, free software isn't just about cost.
No.
It's about having these 4 core freedoms:
Yes.
running the program for any purpose, studying and modifying it, redistributing it, and sharing your modifications.
You got it. And the GenU project argues that these freedoms are essential for a truly open and empowering digital world.
Okay, so now I'm starting to see why the distinction between free as in beer and free as in speech is so important.
Yeah.
It's not about getting something for nothing.
Right.
It's about having the liberty to control and shape the software you use.
Exactly. And it's this emphasis on freedom that really sets free software apart.
Now, I'm guessing there are a lot of misconceptions floating around about what free software actually means.
Yes, definitely.
What are some of those common myths that you encounter?
One of the biggest myths is that free software can't be commercial.
Okay.
People assume that if it's free, you can't make money from it.
Right.
But the GNU project is very clear on this point. They say that free software can absolutely be commercial. It's about liberty, not price.
So a company could develop free software and sell it,
Exactly.
or offer paid support services for it.
Exactly. The freedom to distribute the software, remember, includes the freedom to distribute it for a fee.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess people often get confused because so much free software is just offered as a free trial
Right.
to get you to eventually buy the full version.
Yeah.
But with true free software, it's free from the start, and you have those 4 essential freedoms.
Right. Think of it like this. Free software isn't about price. It's about a philosophy of user empowerment.
Okay, so free software can be commercial, but I'm guessing there are rules about how you can commercialize it. You can't just take someone else's free software and slap a price tag on it and call it your own right.
You're right. There are definitely rules.
Yeah.
And those rules are spelled out in what's called a free software license.
So a free software license is what guarantees that those 4 essential freedoms are protected.
Exactly. It's a legal document that lays out the terms under which the software can be used, modified, and distributed.
And the GNU project being the champions of free software.
Yes.
I assume they have a lot to say about what makes a license truly free.
They do. And we'll dive into the specifics of free software licenses in a bit.
Okay.
But first, I think it's helpful to explore those 4 freedoms in a bit more depth.
Okay.
Let's revisit Freedom 0. the freedom to run the program for any purpose.
Okay, back to freedom zero. What are some of the nuances there that might not be immediately obvious?
Well, think about this. What if a developer created a free software program for, let's say, editing photos, but then restricted how it could be used? What if they said you could only use it to edit personal photos, not for commercial purposes?
Okay.
Would that still be considered free software?
That's a good question. I mean, it's still free in the sense that you don't have to pay for it,
Right.
but it sounds like it would violate that core principle of user freedom.
You're right, it would. And that's why the GNU project is so adamant that the user's purpose should always come first.
Okay.
They argue that you should be free to run the program for any reason, whether it's personal, commercial, educational, or anything else. The developer shouldn't get to dictate how you use it,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So even if a developer gives away their software for free, but they limit how it can be used,
Yeah.
it's not truly free in the eyes of the GNU project.
Exactly. It's about the underlying philosophy of user empowerment and control.
Now, what about freedom one, the freedom to study and modify the software?
Right.
Are there any common roadblocks that kind of get in the way of that freedom?
There are. The GNU project talks about something called tivoization,
Okay.
where companies try to restrict your ability to modify the software.
Right.
Even if you do have access to the source code,
Uh,
they basically lock down the device so you can only run their approved version of the software.
like those smart devices that won't let you install apps from anywhere but like their official store?
Exactly.
Seems like that would directly contradict the idea of free software.
Absolutely. And it's something that the GNU project is actively fighting against.
Yep.
They argue that even if a company provides the source code,
Yeah.
if they prevent you from running modified versions,
Right.
they're undermining the very essence of Freedom 1.
It's like giving you the blueprint to a house,
Yeah,
but then saying you can't actually build it according to your own specifications.
that's a great way to put it. And it highlights why the GNU project is so focused on ensuring that all four freedoms are upheld.
Okay, on to freedom 2 and 3.
Right.
The freedoms to redistribute the software, both with and without modifications.
Mhm.
This seems pretty straightforward. You can share it with your friends.
Right.
You can sell it if you want.
Yeah.
What's the catch?
Well, the GNU project does emphasize that the freedom to distribute must include
Okay.
both the source code and the binary form of the software.
Okay, back up a second. What's a binary form? I'm picturing like something with lots of ones and zeros.
That's exactly what it is. The binary form is the version of the software that your computer can actually run.
Okay.
It's the compiled version of the source code, essentially.
So why is it important to have access to both the source code and the binary form?
Because the source code is what allows you to understand and modify the software.
Right.
But if you only have the binary, you're essentially stuck with a black box.
Okay.
You can use it, but you can't see inside to understand how it works or make changes.
Right. So to fully embrace freedoms 2 and 3,
Yes.
you need the source code so you can tinker,
Right.
and the binary so you can actually use the program.
Got it.
Yeah. Are there any other kind of like nuances when it comes to redistributing free software?
The GNU project also points out that the freedom to redistribute
Mm.
should apply whether you're doing it for free or for a fee.
Okay.
You should be able to give it away, share it with your friends, or even sell it commercially.
So you can actually like build a business around free software.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I'm starting to see how this could lead to some really like
Yeah.
interesting and innovative business models.
Exactly. And it challenges the traditional notion that software has to be proprietary to be profitable.
Now, I've heard a lot about copyleft.
Yeah.
In the context of free software,
Mhm.
it sounds kind of like a legal maneuver.
Right.
What exactly is it, and how does it relate to these freedoms?
Copyleft is a clever mechanism designed to protect the four freedoms.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a rule that says if you redistribute the software,
Yeah.
you can't add any restrictions that would deny others those same freedoms.
So it's like a chain reaction of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
If I modify a copyleft program and share it,
Right.
the people that I share it with
Uh-huh.
also get those four freedoms and so on.
Precisely. It ensures that the software remains free and that the principles of the free software movement are preserved.
Are there any other restrictions that are allowed under a free software license?
There are a few. For example, a license might require you to give credit to the original author
Okay.
or include a copy of the license itself with the software.
Right.
Those are considered reasonable because they don't actually hinder the user's freedom.
What about things like export regulations? Governments sometimes impose restrictions on what software can be shared internationally.
Yes.
Does the John Yu Project have a stance on that?
They do. They believe that export regulations should not be imposed on free software licenses.
Okay.
They argue that these restrictions are often politically motivated
Mm-hmm.
and shouldn't be used to limit the free flow of information and technology.
Okay, now I'm really starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Free software isn't just about the technical details of licenses and source code.
Right.
It's also about a philosophical stance on freedom and access to information.
You got it. And it's this philosophical underpinning that makes the free software movement so compelling.
So let's dive into some of the legal considerations surrounding free software.
Okay.
The GNU Project emphasizes that the freedoms must be permanent and irrevocable.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Think about it this way. If a developer can just revoke your freedom to use, modify, or distribute the software at any time,
Yeah.
it wouldn't really be free, would it?
No, not at all.
Right.
It'd be like living in a house where the landlord could just suddenly change the locks and kick you out for no reason.
Exactly. And that's why the GNU Project insists that the freedoms associated with free software must be enduring
Right.
and protected by a strong legal framework.
What about situations where, like, a free software license tries to impose the terms of a non-free software license?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Definitely not. The GNU Project is very clear on this point.
Yeah.
A free software license can't force you to comply with the terms of a proprietary license.
Right.
That would undermine the whole concept of free software.
It seems like they've thought of a lot of potential loopholes to ensure that these freedoms are truly protected.
They have, and that's why it's so important to have organizations like the GNU Project advocating for the principles of free software.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there are different types of free software licenses.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. Most free software licenses are based on copyright law,
Okay.
but there are also some that are contract-based.
Okay.
And this distinction is important because it can affect the level of freedom that's guaranteed.
Okay, so what's the difference between, like, a copyright-based license and a contract-based license?
Copyright law inherently limits the kinds of restrictions
Okay.
that can be imposed on a work.
Okay.
It's designed to protect the creator's rights while also ensuring that the public has certain freedoms to use and share the work.
So copyright-based licenses tend to be more favorable to the idea of free software.
Generally, yes, because they're built on this foundation of balanced rights and freedoms.
What about contract-based licenses?
Yeah.
Why are they potentially more problematic?
Contracts can be much more flexible. They can include a wider range of terms and conditions. And this flexibility, while sometimes useful,
Yeah.
can also be exploited to restrict user freedom in ways that wouldn't be possible with a copyright-based license.
So with contract-based licenses, you really need to, like, read the fine print
Yes.
to make sure there aren't any hidden restrictions that would undermine those four essential freedoms.
Exactly. You need to be extra vigilant. The GNU Project has actually developed a list of criteria
Okay.
that they use to evaluate software licenses and determine whether they truly qualify as free.
So it's not just a matter of calling something free software.
Right.
There's a whole process of scrutiny and evaluation to make sure it aligns with the principles of the movement.
Right. And they take this evaluation process very seriously.
Mm.
They consider the specific wording of the license, the intent behind it, and the potential impact it could have on user freedom.
That's impressive. So it's like they're the guardians of free software,
Yes.
making sure that the true meaning of free is preserved.
That's a great way to think about it. They're the champions of user freedom in a world where software is becoming increasingly restrictive.
Speaking of language,
Yeah.
the GNU Project also seems to be very careful about the words they use when talking about free software.
They are.
Why is that so important?
Words matter.
Yeah.
And in the context of free software, certain words can be misleading or even detrimental to the cause.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of words do they caution against?
They strongly advise against using terms like giveaway or for free
Okay.
when referring to free software.
Because it reinforces the idea that it's all about cost, not freedom.
Exactly. They want to shift the focus from price to liberty. They want people to understand that the real value of free software lies in the freedoms it provides,
Yeah.
not in the fact that you don't have to pay for it.
And what about the term open source?
Yes.
I often hear that used interchangeably with free software.
Right.
Does this GNU project have a problem with that term?
They do. While open source and free software are often used as synonyms,
Okay.
the GNU project prefers the term free software
Okay.
because they believe it more accurately reflects the core principle of freedom. They argue that the word open doesn't have the same inherent connection to liberty.
So it's a deliberate choice of words to emphasize the philosophical underpinnings of the movement.
Exactly.
It's not just about open access to the code.
Right.
It's about a deeper commitment to user empowerment and control.
Right. And they believe that using the term free software helps to clarify that distinction.
Now, this whole conversation about free software has been really eye-opening for me.
I'm glad.
But I have to admit, I'm still wrapping my head around some of the historical context.
Okay.
The GNU project page we're looking at mentions that the definition of free software has been revised several times over the years. Why is that?
That's a great question. It's important to remember that the concept of free software didn't emerge in a vacuum.
Right.
It evolved over time in response to changes in technology legal challenges and the emergence of new threats to user freedom.
So it's a living definition,
Yes.
constantly being refined and adapted to meet the challenges of a changing world.
Precisely. The GNU project has been incredibly proactive in updating the definition to address new issues and close potential loopholes. It's a testament to their commitment to keeping free software truly free.
What kind of changes are we talking about? Can you give me some examples of how the definition has been updated over time?
Sure. For example, they've clarified the language around commercial use,
Great.
emphasizing that free software can be sold commercially as long as those four freedoms are respected. They've also addressed the issue of diffusion,
Right.
adding language to ensure that users have the right to run modified versions of the software on their own devices.
So they're constantly thinking ahead,
Yes.
trying to anticipate new threats to user freedom and build safeguards into the definition.
Exactly. And they provide a detailed changelog on their website.
Yeah.
So you can see exactly what's been modified and why. It's a fascinating glimpse into the evolution of the free software movement.
That's a great resource for anyone who wants to delve deeper into the history and development of free software.
It really highlights the dedication and foresight of the GNU project in their ongoing mission to protect user freedom in the digital world.
It's amazing to see how much thought and effort has gone into, defining and protecting this whole concept of free software.
I agree. They've really laid the groundwork for a more ethical and empowering approach to software development.
So we've talked a lot about, the technical, legal aspects of free software.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for, the average person? Why should you care about free software?
That's the key question, isn't it? At its core, free software is about giving you more control over the technology that you use every day.
It's about empowering individuals.
Right.
To understand, modify, and share the software that shapes their lives.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just individual benefits. Think about the potential impact free software could have on society as a whole.
Now you've got me thinking, what kind of societal benefits are we talking about?
Well, for one, free software promotes transparency and accountability. Because the source code is open for anyone to inspect, it's much harder to hide malicious code or backdoors.
So it could lead to more secure and reliable software. That's a huge benefit in our increasingly digital world.
Absolutely. And think about the implications for education.
Yeah.
With free software, students have the freedom to tinker with the software they use to learn how it works and to modify it to fit their needs.
It's like giving them the keys of the kingdom.
Exactly.
They can become creators, not just passive consumers of technology.
And that can lead to a more innovative and tech-savvy society. Plus, free software can help bridge the digital divide by providing access to high-quality software for everyone, regardless of their income level.
So it's not just about individual freedom. It's about creating a more equitable and just society.
That's a great way to put it. Free software really has the potential to be a force for positive change in the world.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive.
Yeah,
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of what free software is and why it matters.
I'm glad to hear that.
Where is a good place to start for someone who wants to learn more? Or maybe even get involved in the movement?
The GNU project website is a great resource.
Okay.
They have tons of information on free software licenses, ethical considerations, and ways to connect with others in the community.
They even have a directory of free software programs to try out.
Yes, they do. You can also check out online forums, mailing lists, and local groups dedicated to free software.
Okay.
You'll be surprised how many people are actively working to promote this philosophy.
It's inspiring to see so many people dedicated to creating a more open and empowering digital world.
It really is. And the best part is anyone can join the movement.
So to wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway you hope listeners will remember from this deep dive?
I hope they'll remember that free software is about more than just saving money.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming our digital freedom and building a future where technology empowers individuals and communities.
It's about choosing software that respects our freedom, encourages collaboration, and promotes a more equitable society.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about the technology we use and supporting the developers who are working to make the digital world a freer and more ethical place.
Well said. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. A huge thanks to the JNU Project for their pioneering work in this field.
And a big thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of free software.
We encourage everyone to explore the resources we've mentioned and discover the power of free software for themselves.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.